Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm excited to start a series that I was inspired by one of my mentors. I had the opportunity to learn from and to actually get some individual connection with a wonderful Unity minister by the name of Jack Boland. Any of you familiar with Jack Boland? Jack Boland was a just well-loved and well-respected Unity minister for many years at Unity in Detroit, Michigan, and he was a very powerful teacher and just an incredible heart and amazing, brilliant mind. And he did a series many years ago on this same subject of reincarnation, karma, and resurrection. I kind of rewrote it. I wrote karma and resurrection and reincarnation and resurrection. But as I was preparing for this lesson, I came across this really cute cartoon, and this one character in the cartoon said, no, I don't believe in reincarnation. And the other one said, oh, really? He says, no, I don't believe in it at all. I think I believed in it more last lifetime, but I don't believe in it at all. But reincarnation and resurrection and karma have been things that have kind of occupied a lot of people throughout history. And there are different ways of understanding, different schools of thought, and different viewpoints perhaps about it. And yet it is actually one of the reincarnation, interestingly enough, is actually believed by the majority of the people in this world. Many of the different faiths have a very clear idea about this idea of reincarnation. Now, there are different belief systems about what happens to us when we leave these bodies. And in some teachings, that once you leave the body, that's it. There's nothing, that you no longer exist. And then there are other teachings that, you exist, and then you go to this place called heaven. And you get to hang out with all these angels, and you get to hang out with God. And, there's value, that's a beautiful understanding. And perhaps there's something in between all of this. Perhaps there's also this idea, this understanding that you then also, you come back and have a different life and a new life. And maybe there's something to that as well. Well, I'm going to suggest to you that we're actually in, right now, an exciting journey, all of us. We're in this group, and we've learned a lot here in just this small group about ourselves and about each other and about this journey that we call life. And the journey that we call life is one that is so rich with opportunities and experiences. And so one of the things that I am always encouraged to think about and to understand is, and one of the things that I really focus a lot on when I do my teachings is not so much about life after death, but I really am focused more on, is there really life before death? But I think the understanding and the awareness of this idea and this philosophy that we have lived before is one of the things that allows us to really experience a fullness of life before death, of life here and now. And it gives a much more complete understanding of how we grow and how we evolve as spiritual beings. So it's an exciting journey. And the thing that I want to say is that the only thing really required to really begin to comprehend how we can grow more and to develop more and to experience more of this fullness of life that Jesus talked about. He said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And the way to really experience more of that is there's one requirement. It's an important requirement, I believe, and that is to have an open mind. Because the world and the universe and our life experiences are so much more than our limited logical ego consciousness awareness about it. And so unless we are allowing our minds to be open to greater possibilities, we're really seeing life through a very limited viewpoint. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is that as we kind of go through this series over the next several weeks, today and over the next several weeks, that if there's something that I say that doesn't really seem to resonate with you now, I would invite you to actually, as we say, put it on the back burner. Don't necessarily reject it completely. Just put it on the back burner and let it simmer there for a while and take some time to reflect on it and meditate on it. And you may find that eventually you want to bring it to the front burner because there's something delicious cooking there. There's something that really will begin to resonate with you on a deep level. And it'll begin to have a sense and an awareness that there's something in this for me. I'm going to suggest to you that you're not here this morning by accident. You weren't here last lifetime by accident either, by the way. We were together once before. I'm absolutely convinced of it. I'm convinced that this is not the only time that we have experienced being in this form or in a form, let's put it that way, maybe not this form, but a form. And so I've had lots of things that have reinforced that for me. But the thing that I will say in my lesson today, and the thing I share with you, is that I'm not going to be able to cover all of the different awarenesses and the facts and the stories and the implications of this idea of reincarnation and karma and resurrection in this series, because it's broad and there's a lot of really good. I'm going to share some great resources and some great insights that are available to you. But I want to suggest to you that the most important lesson, the most important teacher, you might say, is your subconscious mind, or what we in Unity often call our Christ self, your Christ self. And that's the real arbiter of truth for each and every one of us. So I invite you to really listen to not just the words that I say or the books that I reference or the stories that I tell, but listen to that place in you that has a ring, an awareness, an ear for truth. There's a part of you that knows truth when it experiences it. And I can only say that for me, I came across numerous things that when I saw them and reflected on them, they spoke to me on such a deep level that in my heart, for me, I knew they were true. And that they reflected a truth that was beyond my limited thinking at the time. You see, that divine nature that is within you, that we call the Christ self, is that part of you that's already in alignment and in connection with your oneness, with something greater, with that which is unlimited, with that which is divine. And so when we talk about this, it's valuable, I think. The next couple of weeks we're going to talk about reincarnation. Today we're going to talk about reincarnation, and kind of the focus is that there is a plan for you and for your life and for your soul evolution, for your soul growth. That you are here to evolve into something more than these personalities and physical forms that we're currently living in and through. And part of our unfoldment is to begin to have life experiences that begin to show us and help us to experience more of that great possibility. Next week, we're going to talk about your immortal nature, this eternal aspect of who and what we are, our one life, our true identity. See, in a real sense, one of the things Jack was taught is that, we don't have many lives. We've heard this idea when we talk about reincarnation. One of the things he emphasizes, we have many life incarnations, but we only have one life. There's only one life, and that one life runs through all of life's experiences. That's true not only if you believe that we are reincarnated, but it's true even in this life. There really is only one life, and that life is the essence of who and what you truly are and what you're created of. We're created in the image and after the likeness of God, the divine. And so that's the essence of our nature. And all of life experiences are ways that we have of unfolding greater experience and awareness of that one life. And then we're going to talk about actually some scriptural references that really do point out or at least lend to the understanding of the idea that we actually have lived before and we will live again. So we'll kind of really look into the scripture about that. We're going to talk on Easter, of course, about resurrection. And resurrection, I think, is one of the really keys to our evolution, to our spiritual unfoldment. It's really the direction that all of us are being called toward. That we're all here not to just simply become reincarnated, but to come above and beyond these physical forms into a form perhaps that we don't really comprehend at this point. That's beyond the cycle of life and death and rebirth. And that all of us are actually not just here to celebrate one who has experienced that, but is drawing us and calling us into that kind of knowing and experience for ourselves. And then we're going to actually have talk about how karma fits into this. How does this idea of karma fit into our soul evolution? And how does it really help us unfold more of this unique divine nature? And then we're going to have a summary and have some question and answers. Does that all sound good? So, Jack Bowen actually, in some of the works that he did on this, quoted a Roper poll that was done actually back in the 70s, and I have a feeling it's probably even more significant now, but the Roper poll said that 67% of the people in this country believe that there's something that happens, that we existed after the physical death. And the same poll actually said that 10% of all Catholics believe in reincarnation, which I think is pretty fascinating. I have a feeling it's probably even larger than that today. I don't know that, but I just have a feeling that since the 70s that more and more people have come into this kind of way of looking at and seeing things. But one of the things that happens is that reincarnation is oftentimes confused with other teachings. The word reincarnation really means to be born in a body again. So to reincarnate, to incarnate means to become incarnated, to bring into carnal expression. And so a living being, an incarnate being, is a being that is actually a deity or spirit in physical form. And I'm looking out at amazing deity in each and every one of you in physical form. Because this is the reality and the truth of who and what you are. And this is what you've come to learn and to grow into and to experience more of. We've all come to really know more of that essence of our divine nature. Oftentimes, and I'm going to suggest to you that this was the essence and the purpose of what Jesus was trying to teach us. He taught us many things. And there were many things, but more than anything, he taught by the story and the example and the mythos and the scripture of his birth and death and resurrection, to understand that there's something more than these limited physical forms that you and I are incarnated in at this time. And so all of the teachings of Jesus really were geared toward this. He taught not just with his words, but he taught with his life. And his life was about really coming to be aware of the oneness that he had with Spirit. But he said, the things that I have done, ye shall do also, and even greater things. Do you think he meant that? No, he was just joshing us, right? He was just joking. I don't think so. I think that there's a part of us that knows that there's something more. There's something greater. There's something that we are being called from a deep place to express more of our possibility of good and grace and joy and light and life and abundance and health. And it's calling us in different ways. And sometimes those calls take us through experiences that are not always necessarily pleasant. Lissy was telling me this morning, if I can remember, about a book that she's really excited about. And she said, was telling that there's really only 4 basic emotions. There is, help me, Jim. There's pleasant and unpleasant, calm and arousal. Well, sometimes the experiences that we have are not calm and they're not pleasant. And yet, I'm absolutely convinced that every one of them is here for us, even the ones that are not calm and not pleasant, and that they're here to show us more of the greater possibilities of our own unique divine nature and how we can allow that part of ourselves to come from not just a place of what's going on for us right now in our current thinking, but to expand our awareness and to expand our thinking so that we can begin to understand and see ourselves more as the unique spiritual beings that we are. Well, this idea of reincarnation, I don't know exactly when and where it first came to me with my own experiences. It came I was fairly young, I would say probably high school, when I began to really question. And I was raised in the Methodist church, and the Methodist church really actually encouraged us to kind of explore different philosophies and different understandings and ideas. They weren't as dogmatic as some of the other churches that I'd been to. They didn't say you had to believe this way, but it really encouraged me to really think for myself. And then they regretted it. Because I always had questions, I always questioned a lot of things that were going on, and I really had a lot of questions. And one of the questions really it brought to me some different ideas and different things that I began to learn and study. And I came across a work called There Is a River, and it's the biography of Edgar Cayce. How many of you are familiar with Edgar Cayce? So if you want to get some understanding of some ideas or some awareness about this idea, this philosophy, from someone who, interestingly enough, didn't know whether he really believed it or not, but really brought this idea through a more of a channeled kind of experience and taught really some amazing things about this idea of reincarnation. And that's really one of the places for me that really I got a real deeper awareness. And as I began to read it, that part of me that kind of knows, there's a part of you that always knows. You don't know why you know, but you know because you know because you know. There was something in that really made me know that there was some truth here, that I really needed to be open to the possibility that this was true. And I began to really explore that understanding as I began to reflect on and meditate on different teachings, and I began to have different awarenesses and different experiences. And I'll share it with you that I've had the experience of being hypnotized and going back and experiencing what I know for myself was a former life experience. I was actually a lumberjack up in the Northwest and had some very vivid memories of that experience and what that was like for me. Now, I can't chop a tree for anything now, but I learned to stay out of the way of falling trees from that experience. And maybe some other things. I also had a very vivid experience of a time interesting enough, I had a great experience when I was traveling from Virginia to Florida one time with my former wife. And she was driving, and I was kind of in and out of that place of sleep. I had been driving for many hours, and was kind of resting and kind of in and out of consciousness, as they say, in that level that they refer to, I believe, as theta. And I just began to have these images as we were approaching St. Augustine, Florida. And I really didn't know a lot about St. Augustine, Florida. I didn't know much about what that place was about or what it was, historically. I didn't really know much about the history of St. Augustine, Augustine, Florida. But as I understand it, St. Augustine was one of the first places that De Soto landed on this continent. And I saw very clear images of myself dressed in the Spanish-style armor and actually being lowered down into a grave and a shield being placed on top of me. And I'm convinced that I was somehow part of that exploration. And so, I've had different experiences that to me really spoke to possibilities of other experiences in other lives. I don't know if anybody else in this room has had those kind of experiences, but I suspect there have been a few, and that some of you may have had things like that. So, the thing about it really speaks to me on a deep level because it really says to me that there's something more to the limited thought and idea of myself. And one of the things that really I wanted to kind of touch on is this idea that we are continually evolving. And I'm going to suggest to you that we are evolving or we are devolving. But ultimately, even if we devolve, meaning that we kind of go backwards in our understanding and awareness, eventually there are times and circumstances that will jar us or wake us up into a greater possibility of who and what we are and what we've come here to be. Charles Fillmore said, "Belief in successive incarnation of man was accepted by all the scriptural writers who were spiritually wise. The tents and tabernacles in which the children of Israel lived in the wilderness are symbols of the fleshly body that men put on and off again and again." So you can see it's a very clear understanding that the founder, the co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, had a very definite understanding that we do come into these physical forms more than once. Not the same one, perhaps. And I'm going to suggest to you that we don't necessarily come into the same personalities either. We may have some similar characteristics. We may have some things that are very much in harmony or affected by things that have happened in other life experiences. We may have similar threads of emotions that run through this life that were actually triggered perhaps in life experiences beyond this current physical form. So one of the things that I do is I work with emotional freedom techniques. Many of you are familiar that I do this work, and part of the work with emotional freedom technique is to help people release blocked energy, emotional energy, that oftentimes shows up in these physical forms. And I've had experiences with a couple of clients where part of the work is to help people first discover what's going on with them emotionally and where they're experiencing that in the physical form, and then begin to release the emotional energy about that particular experience. And then the more specific you can be about a particular memory that people have, and to be able to tap on that particular memory, the more effective it is. And oftentimes what we want to do is try to find the earliest memory of that experience. Now, the thing I love about EFT is you don't necessarily have to go back and re-traumatize people by having them go through that experience again, but there's a gentle way of actually doing this in such a way that they are able to clear the emotional energy behind a particular experience without necessarily having to get re-traumatized by going through it again. But I've had a couple of clients that when I would take them back to some of their earliest memories of this particular energy or emotion or blocked place that goes on in their life, this pattern that we discover, they've had memories that were beyond some of their youngest memories. And they've had memories that were from perhaps other life experiences. And so we'll actually begin to tap on the memories of those early life experiences, and what we've discovered is you can use that just as much as you can some of the early life experiences, because it's the same energy. And it may or may not, quote, be real memories. I'm convinced that it is, but that's just my bias. But whether it is or not, you actually clear that energy anyway. So it fascinates me that we would have experiences that, when you take it back to an earlier stage in life, there are memories that are even beyond that. I had the great experience and privilege of meeting and having come to, often attend, and also spoke at my church in Charlottesville, Virginia, a man who wrote probably the most well-known and respected scientific research on reincarnation. It's called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, and it's by Ian Stevenson. And Ian is a psychiatrist and was also a professor at the University of Virginia, and had done extensive research on stories of different people who've had experiences of memories before they were born in other experiences. And there's some really fascinating, if you want to get some more detailed kind of explanations or experiences of this, you want to pick up this book, 20 Cases Suggestive Reincarnation. And in this, he tells numerous stories of young children who remembered living in other villages that they had no way of really having any information about, but being able to describe both the family they were in detail, and the surrounding terrain and the village itself. And then when these children were taken to actually meet some of these families, recognize them and even call them by name. There are just numerous stories of this kind of experience. And one of the things that really, to me, absolutely kind of helps to understand that kind of phenomena is that they were there before. That there's some reality to this. And that there is something going on that is beyond perhaps our limited concept at this time. But I'm going to suggest to you that reincarnation in and of itself is not the end desire or goal for us. That each experience that we have, each lifetime, is basically to help us learn a little bit more about this unique divine nature that we are all created in and of, into a place where we are actually resurrected from this cycle of birth and death and rebirth. So that we are really, truly coming from a place that we probably can't even comprehend or conceive at this point. But we are evolving into a whole nother level of possibility, a whole nother level of being. And so, homework for this week is not necessarily to try and figure out who you were, whether you were Cleopatra or Caesar in the last life, but to be open to the possibility that there are inputs that are going on in you, and there are things coming from other experiences other than just this lifetime that have formed and shaped and brought to you experiences in this lifetime for you to transform and to heal and to resurrect from. And that's our lesson for this week. So let's move into our meditation time.
Change the world. Change the world. Ready.
So take a nice deep breath now. And breathe into the heart space. And as we breathe in and out, just be aware that that breath is connected to our essence. The word breath comes from a word that is the same root as the word spirit. And to inspire. And to inspire is to breathe in. And so I invite you to breathe in to that place in you where you're most open and receptive to knowing and feeling the truth of your oneness, of your one life. Beyond all of the thoughts and ideas and beliefs and images and concepts that you have today, there's something more. More radiant, more clear, more aware. And we are all evolving in that knowing of that essence through this life experience. Sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes in powerful ways. Sometimes in clarity and sometimes in simply asking the questions, who am I really? What is my truth? Who have I come here to be and express? What is my sincere focus? Let yourself just be open and receptive to knowing that each day, each step, each breath is taking you to a place of higher knowing. And as Jesus the Christ taught, do you not know? Is it not written, ye are gods and sons and daughters of the Most High? Are you open to allowing yourself to have that possibility? Just breathe that in. And give thanks that you are here and now surrounded by all those who are also gods and children of the Most High. Take a nice deep breath now. Let your awareness move back into this room, this time, this place. Let yourself breathe deeply the essence of the here and now. And take one more nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes and give thanks. And so it is. Amen.